Is it bothering you?
No, and just saying you've had gum in your mouth before when you've been talking and you can see it.
I just put that in my mouth.
I'm sorry.
It still had flavor.
I'm sorry. Welcome to Sister Sharp and Sister. My name is Karen.
I'm Shalon.
That was Dee Dee. There she is.
I'm Dee Dee. I'm Delina. Sorry.
Off your camera instead of your voice.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry. I cut off my camera instead of the sound because I had to cough. Sorry about that.
Oh,
That's
that's all
okay.
good. That's all good. Today we're taking a little bit of a different lane. It is November. A lot of people are talking about Thanksgiving. I caught that. You were leaning. We're actually going to talk about giving and celebrations related to our cultural heritage because I did a DNA test, about a year and a half ago, something like that.
Hmm.
I
And
don't remember.
it came back that we are 34% Irish, 33% Scottish,
English, well,
English, Welsh,
yeah.
and the remaining, our third most was
Canadian.
Scandinavian at 29%. And then we had some scattered less than 1% that included uh, North American Indian. What was the other ones? There was like Polish,
Mediterranean and Slavic.
Slavic. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Slavic and Mediterranean. But I
Yeah.
still
Okay.
think it's going to make for a good episode, but because we're talking about our heritage, our
Yes.
family heritage,
Hmm.
and what this time of the year can bring.
Hmm.
So let's see. I'll go ahead and start. Now, Shalon had the Scottish part, and I had the Irish part. But here's the thing with those two. Yeah, they are very much blended.
They're very much the same.
So I'm going to talk about some of the things that are associated with this time of the year and some celebrations that are associated with giving thanks. So one of the first things that I did was that I looked up um, traditions of ancient Ireland and how it led to Thanksgiving. That was the first thing that I looked up. And one of the first things that popped up was the fact that there is a tale that says that the Irish actually saved Thanksgiving. And I'm going to read a little bit from this post. No one can say for sure exactly when the first Thanksgiving was celebrated, but at least one historian thinks it was invented as a day of Thanksgiving for the generosity of the Irish people after a ship from Ireland, bursting with provisions, landed in Massachusetts Bay in the freezing winter of 1621. The first Thanksgiving was actually celebrated on February the 21st, 1621, when a band of starving pilgrims at Plymouth Rock were saved at the last minute by the arrival of a ship from Dublin bearing food from Ireland. And as it turns out, from the records that they have at the Massachusetts Historical Society, oh my gosh, excuse me, I don't know what that was. The wife of one of the prominent Plymouth Rock brethren, one of the English people that came over, was the daughter of a Dublin merchant. And when he found out what was happening, I'm assuming through written correspondence, because there was no telephone at this time, he's the one that chartered the vessel, loaded it with food and supplies, and sent it to Plymouth Rock. If you take a Celtic approach to Thanksgiving, one of the things that they rely heavily on at this time of the year is gratitude. It's a key Celtic virtue, regardless of the time of year. But when it comes to gathering in the harvest and the end of summer and the beginning of the cold weather, where things don't grow and it's snowy outside and you can't really have a whole lot, um, it helps people to recognize the interdependence that you have as a society. and that we actually stand on the shoulders of the people that came before us. Like we're standing on the shoulders of our parents, and they're standing on the shoulders of their parents. And it takes elders, like older people in your social circle, as well as family and friends and teachers, to help teach us and train us how to live, especially in a time where there was no social media. Because it could take a week to travel from one settlement to another.
It still takes all those things regardless of social media.
Well, yeah, but I mean, social media, and I'm talking like the internet in general. If I wanted to know how to make, I don't know, cranberry sauce, I can just look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I learned how to make omelets.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have to rely on my family to teach me how to do that. I did it on my own using social media.
Right.
But back in those days, you learned from your mother and your grandmother and
Yes,
aunts.
your aunts, and everything was taught. It was handed down through your family. So that one person, and I'm going to butcher this name. You want to help me out here, Shalon? Dag Hammarskjöld, Hammarskjold. That's a Scandinavian name. He says that for all that has been, thanks. For all that shall be, yes. I kind of like that. I mean, it's different.
I kind of like that right now too.
Right? I mean, for all that shall be,
yes.
Blessings, yes, bring them.
Mm-hmm.
Just, hopefully I recognize them as blessings, even if they don't come with a bow. Another thing, Dee Dee, you had suggested that I actually search up, how do people from the Irish culture see giving?
Mm-hmm.
And they show love and appreciation. I mean, that's what everybody does, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to giving. If I can get this page to load. There. Okay. Irish festivals. Irish festivals and gift exchanging is deeply rooted.
You making up a new language, are you there, sister?
Okay, Kieran talks, take 2.
You're not trying to speak Gaelic.
All right, gift exchange in Ireland is deeply rooted in the festivals and the special occasions that are in that country. Now, this particular site, which is called everlastingroses.com, talks about St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Christmas, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, etc. And it says, for instance, St. Patrick's Day is a day of great celebration, and people exchange gifts such as traditional Irish foods, drinks, and souvenirs. So things that you could get:
Irish whiskey,
Celtic jewelry, Aran sweaters, which I would love to. If I could knit, that's one of the things that I would knit. I know how to knit, but I prefer to crochet. Pottery is one that's up there. It also says that Irish tea and biscuits, and when they say biscuits, I'm going to assume cookies. Right? Cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And Irish linen. I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I've heard of Egyptian cotton, but never Irish linen. Have you heard of Irish linen, Dee Dee?
It's not ringing a bell.
But
okay, Irish linen. Irish linen is a fine, lightweight fabric made from flax fibers and woven or knitted in Ireland. Flax has been grown in Ireland since at least 10,000 BC, excuse me.
Wow.
So.
But one of the other things that I did was I actually went to ChatGPT and I typed in, can you tell me what ceremonies or celebrations the Celtic people would have in order to give thanks? Leave out anything related to the American holiday of Thanksgiving. And the computer kindly came up with this. The Celtic people held various celebrations and ceremonies throughout the year to honor the natural cycles and express gratitude, especially for harvest, the different seasons, and their deities. The traditions were tied to the rhythms of nature and the changing of seasons that reflected their deep connection to the earth and its gifts. Some of the key Celtic festivals that were involved include, and some of these, although with different names, are also in the Scottish tradition.
No, it's the same.
Wasn't one of them different? Like these were different, weren't they? Okay, we'll get to it. It talks about Samhain, which is from the night of October the 31st into November the 1st, and it marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. The Celts honored the ancestors and the spirits by thanking them for protection and guidance. They celebrated the bounty of a harvest and offered food and drinks. Oh, I'm sorry. Offerings of food and drinks were often made that symbolized gratitude for the sustenance through the dark winter months that were coming.
Samhain is the Gaelic for November.
Which I think is kind of neat.
And it's Gaelic, not Gaelic.
Yeah. Now, it also talks about Imbolc, Imbolc, which is February the 1st and the 2nd. It's a celebration of the return of the light and the first stirrings of spring. And it was celebrated to the goddess Brigid. Now, that's a Celtic goddess. People expressed the gratitude for surviving the harsh winter, and they performed rituals to welcome the growing strength of the sun. It was a time to celebrate the early signs of life returning, like snowdrops, lambs being born. Snowdrops? Snowflakes?
You want me to look that up?
No, it's a flower.
Flower. Okay, yeah. I was like, it sounds like a vegetation, but let me just look.
Okay, yeah, it's a flower. Okay. Yeah, but it symbolized hope and renewal. And then you have Beltane, April the 30th to May the 1st. It celebrated fertility and growth and abundance and marked the beginning of summer and a season of planting. They gave thanks to the earth by seeking blessings for healthy crops and livestock. And offerings to gods and goddesses were common. Bonfires were lit as an act of protection and for gratitude for the promise of a fruitful summer. And then we have Lucina, August the 1st. Was that also Lucina in Scotland?
It is.
Okay. It was the festival of the first harvest.
Lucina coincides with the English Lammas or Loaf Mass Day.
Kind of like the opposite of Lent. I guess they made bread and they ate bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lucina was dedicated to the god Lugh, L-U-G-H. It was a time of feasting and games and gatherings where people celebrated and gave thanks for the beginning of the grain harvest. Bread and other foods from the first grains were often shared in ceremonies that symbolized gratitude for abundance. And then we have Alban Elir, which is the spring equinox, and Alban Elfed, which is the autumn equinox. And they were celebrated as a time of balance because it was the cycle of planting and harvesting. And the autumn equinox in particular was the harvest Thanksgiving, which is where we are now. And the rituals were to honor the earth's fertility and to give thanks for the crops that had been grown. And feasts and offerings were common ways to express gratitudes to nature.
When I was reading the Samhain and Imbolc and Beltane are in the middle of the equinoxes.
Yeah.
So it's like what they did in the middle.
They just kind of like carried it all around.
Yeah.
And I imagine that, like, they didn't have church like we have church when these things were going on.
No.
I mean, they go on now, but we have church. We go to church every week, right? You're supposed to go to church every Sunday. And I imagine that for them, this was kind of like their church. It was their rhythm.
Well, yeah,
right?
It was their rituals. A lot of what I looked up especially when I was looking up the foods and everything that they might have eaten during Samhain or Lucina, it kept bringing me to some Wicca pages of, so this definitely was a church for that.
Nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of foods did you run into?
Oh, goodness. All right. So the traditional foods for Samhain included apples, barmbrack, which is a cross between a cake and a bread, and it is made by soaking fruit in tea overnight and then baking it in the bread. Sounds like fruitcake to me.
Yeah.
And it's served with butter.
I bet that's good.
Yeah,
I've never actually put butter on fruitcake.
I probably have.
I just eat it plain.
Our uncle makes a mean fruitcake.
It's a bomb.
I know
fruitcake.
everybody rags on fruitcake, but our uncle makes a good fruitcake.
It is really good.
Speaking of traditions and everything, we need to make sure that he hands down that recipe.
Absolutely.
All right, what else do we have? We have a potato dish, colcannon. Is that how you pronounce that? Yeah. Colcannon. Nuts, soul cakes, turnips.
I'm sorry, that's my dog.
Meat. Because a lot of the families who would have had livestock over the summer and everything would have probably slaughtered the animals now, so they didn't have to keep them alive during the winter.
Yeah, it would be hard to feed them when you're trying to feed the animals and yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Lucina, which is August 1st, the Scottish traditional foods that I found were the fresh baked breads, summer berries, roasted corn, soups and stews with barley, lamb, mutton, and also apples.
Sounds good. Do you like barley?
What sounds good? Yeah.
You like barley? I like barley.
Yeah.
What about you, Dee Dee?
It's all right, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the Campbell's vegetable soup with the barley.
With the barley in it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. I actually made a homemade version of that.
Did you?
Yes.
I bet it was delicious.
It was awesome. My dog. Oh, here's a little tail wagging. So this time of year, I mean, I know, listen, I'm gonna give a hint to next week. Next week, we're talking about what we fixed for Thanksgiving.
That wasn't a hint. You just said it.
I know, bleh. There it is. We're going to talk about what we fixed for Thanksgiving and how that came about. But what do you look forward to at this time of year when it comes to celebration at home?
Family.
No. I'm talking food.
Oh, food.
Yeah, food.
What? Oh.
You say all of it? I'm going to say all of it.
Yeah, but specifically the combination of the flavor of turkey dressing, cranberry sauce with sweet potatoes.
Yes.
All that mixed together in my mouth.
Yes. Yeah.
And pie.
Now, Dee Dee took our Scandinavian part, and she's got quite a bit of information.
Well, I'll start off by just saying that the Sweden, they actually celebrated Thanksgiving. Okay,
Like
and they
we do?
It's similar to what we do. They primarily use it as a way to start getting ready for Christmas, but they do celebrate, and theirs is celebrated on the last Sunday in September every year.
Okay.
Okay. Now, hold on. Let me get there. Now, as far as Scandinavian Americans, not just from Sweden, but Scandinavian nations, so Norway, Sweden, and I think Finland. I forget what the exact Scandinavian countries are, but I looked it up, but it didn't look like I wrote it down, or maybe I put it on this other page here. Hold on, let me look. Yes. Scandinavia denotes Norway, Sweden, and Denmark.
Only those three?
Yes. Those are
it would include Iceland as well.
Well, Iceland is considered a Nordic country or a Northern country.
Okay.
But it's not Scandinavian.
Okay.
Okay. Scandinavian is Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. So our heritage of being Scandinavian is either from Norway, Sweden, or Denmark. It's not from Finland, Iceland, or any place like that. So,
Okay.
so okay. So now that's done. So Scandinavian Americans may celebrate Thanksgiving. They do it in a variety of different ways. It's a time, like I said, to start getting ready for Christmas because Christmas is a major holiday in the Scandinavian countries, as well as people who are American but come from Scandinavian heritage. And of course, they start preparing food and do stuff like that. Family and celebrating with their family is very important. So they all get together, or they will call family members or send out cards to family members and friends and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They do cook what they call traditional meals, which for the Scandinavian Americans, it might include turkey, stuffing, gravy, sweet potatoes, cornbread, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, or lingonberry preserves.
Now, I've never heard of that berry.
I had neither. I had to look it up. Lingonberry, excuse me, is in the same family as a cranberry, so it's similar. But from what I read, it actually pairs better with a Thanksgiving meal than cranberry because the lingonberry is not as tart as a cranberry.
Huh.
Now,
Can I find those at Walmart?
I like
you
it.
can. It's expensive.
Oh,
Of course it is.
Yeah.
cranberries
But
cheap. I think I saw a pound of cranberries for 98 cents at Walmart just the other day.
well, there's a lot of cranberries out there to buy, a lot of cranberry sauce, cranberry whatevers. The lingonberry is not as well known, so there's not as much available to buy. So
Right.
it's going to be more expensive.
Hmm.
So
Might still have to
um,
try it.
now the Nordic American might make like a Thanksgiving breakfast that could include a number of different things, one of which would be like a hot cereal. Now, as far as the Scandinavians go, and as far as giving, giving in the Scandinavian culture is viewed as being a collective responsibility because it is very important for the community to survive. Because you got to think about this. Way back in the ancient Vikings, if those communities didn't survive, they didn't survive.
Right. And
So
Vikings were
even
everywhere, man. They were in England before the
yes,
Romans were.
so their guide for giving is to make sure the whole community has what they need. So as far as charitable stuff happening in the Scandinavian countries, it's not as needed as it is here in the United States because they provide for their own. They take care of their own.
Do they still do, excuse me. Do they still do that today?
Yes. And it also has to do with community focus because keeping your community alive and active and making sure everybody has what they need. Food, clothes, medicine, things like that, insulin. Now, when we're talking about gift giving to individuals, like to family members or your friends or your coworkers or whoever, they tend to favor smaller, more thoughtful presents rather than anything that's really extravagant. So they don't really go all out and give big gifts to people. They keep it smaller. Ancient Vikings, they pretty much had the same view of making sure the community survived, making sure everybody had what they needed. Okay. Because if way back in the day when it was actual Vikings, if they had a visitor to come to their home, they would welcome any visitor into their home, make sure they had food, warmth, something to drink, place to sleep. But you better darn well be respectful and appreciative of what you're getting.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, they're not going to be happy. And I'm telling you, I don't think I would want to walk into an ancient Viking home and have them give me a meal and me not be thankful.
Oh no.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the Viking period, honor, family, and lineage were critically important. Okay, so your family, your lineage, and keeping your family afloat was very important to them. So, and people oftentimes thinks of Vikings as just being conquerors and warriors, and okay, yeah, they were, but they also were farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, you can't have beer without grain. So they were farmers, right? They baked bread. They ate elk and deer and fish. They had a varied diet. King, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right or not, but King Hakon Haraldsson, Haakon Haraldsson, is a 10th century ruler of Norway. The Norse Yule, and we're familiar with that word,
Yeah.
celebration was merged with that of the Christian Christmas during his reign.
Oh,
So from that point, Christmas overtook Yule, although many Yule traditions and symbols remain.
right.
Now, the
Well,
Viking Yule celebration had multiple purposes, including celebrating the winter solstice. So the Vikings celebrated Yule on the winter solstice to mark the longest night of the year. So, and the rebirth of the sun, because it's the longest night of the year, so the days after that are going to slowly start getting longer.
Right.
Celebrating the end of the year, Yule was a time to celebrate the end of the year and the end of the work cycle, because you did your harvest and all that stuff, and then it's rest time. So they would honor their gods. They would make sacrifices to their gods and ancient spirits, especially Thor, who protected the realms from chaos.
Yeah.
Spending time with family was vital and very important. Yule was a time to spend time with the family and friends and to tell stories and pass along family traditions. Karen was talking about the cooking and everything. So, I mean, when you're in a long house and it's nothing but snow and ice outside, you're probably going to be inside learning how to cook and knit wool socks and stuff.
Right. Yeah. So make
Yeah.
jewelry and stuff like that.
so we
Yes.
should take up lace making this winter.
I don't know about lace making, man. That is an endeavor.
Yeah. It was also a time when the Vikings were interested in weakening the borders between realms. The Vikings would offer gifts to the powers protecting them to safeguard themselves during the darkest winter months. Now, some aspects of the Viking Yule celebration might include Yule trees.
Christmas
Okay,
tree.
Christmas tree. The Vikings would place a tree in their homes to represent the great ash tree. They would decorate the tree with statues of Norse gods, food, and clothing.
Now,
So that's,
did they put candles on it, or is that came later, right?
I think that came later.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an English
Toasting.
thing.
Yeah. Toasting. The Vikings would drink toasts to Odin, Njord, Freya. These are some of the Norse gods, and to their king, their leader, and to the memory of departed kinsfolk. So their heritage was important. Remember me saying earlier that the lineage was important, so
Yeah.
they would keep track of it. Like, yeah. Some of the games that the Vikings would play. They would play games like, and I'm going to try to pronounce this, Nifatassel.
Okay. Is that football?
No.
Oh.
It's a
Sounds like
strategic
football.
board
It does,
game.
doesn't it? Yeah. What is it?
Board game?
A strategic board game that some people call Viking chess.
Ooh. Okay.
Yes. It's not exactly like chess because the game pieces aren't the same, the moves are not the same, and whereas in a chessboard, the board is equal and all of its squares, everything is like perfectly
Yeah.
the same size. The board for this type of game is not like that. So
You think that's how they learned to fight like they did?
I don't know. Maybe
I
it
think
maybe
it
helps
probably
with strategizing.
yes. Yes,
Yeah,
it was
that's what I mean.
yeah, this was, I mean, yes, families were important, lineage was important, keeping the community together was important, farming was important, but they were also a warrior people. So a lot of their things would have been fighting and learning how to strategize and things like that. Um,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Stop it.
oh, and another one, and when I first read this, I was like, huh? It's don't fall in the mead hall. And I'm like,
If we'd ever heard of that in the chat, and I was
yeah.
like, nope.
And I'm like, well, I hadn't either, but I learned a little bit. You know, we learned something with every episode. I learned something on this. Don't fall in the meat hall. When,
Wait, is this a drinking game?
well, and here's the thing: when I first started reading it, I'm like, oh, this is ancient beer pong. And I even looked it up, and it is similar in certain ways to beer pong.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
You have a dice that you roll, and it's multi-sided. And according to what the dice says, will depend on what you do. You either drink, send a drink to another table or another person, make a toast, throw a chair at another table, challenge another Viking to fight you on the battle mat. So this is also a fighting game and an endurance game. So it's kind of like beer pong, but not exactly like beer pong. But it is a drinking game.
But yeah, beer pong.
Yeah. It is a
no
drinking
way
No.
how do we say it? Do not do this at home, children.
Yeah, don't.
We are not endorsing this game.
No, I'm not endorsing this game. I mean, I may have Viking heritage, but I'm not about to go rolling a dice and throwing chairs at other tables. I'm not going to be doing that. I don't want to end up in jail. To win, the player who's still standing and still in control at the end wins the game.
So I guess the entire inn would have to partake.
Yes, the mead hall, and mead is honey wine,
right?
Or honey beer. So,
so this was only at the tavern, and wasn't done in their long houses or their individual homes or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
So would it have been all men?
Yes, most likely. Not going to say there were no Viking women in there, but it was mostly the men.
I was going to say, don't Viking women have a name for themselves as far as strength?
They do. They do. Absolutely, they do. They were fierce in and among themselves. But I don't know about you all, but there are times when I don't want my husband to be here. I want to be separated from the man and be in my woman space. So
the she shed.
Yes. So give me my woman space every now and again. So this would give the Viking women a chance to get the men out of the house so they could do whatever they needed to do inside the house.
Okay.
Go play that game at the mead hall. Go play. Win. So
I wonder what they would win though. Was like, other than just saying I'm king of the hill, was there actually a prize?
Well, that may have actually been the prize, because when you're talking about the ancient Vikings and their warrior stance, being the last person standing was a prize.
Yeah,
that's true.
The skill and the honor to be able to go through all of that and be the last one there.
Yeah, and probably be drunk while you're the last one trying to stand.
Yeah, last one standing and doing this. I'm staggering, but I'm still standing. So yeah. So that's ancient beer pong, Viking style.
Oh my gosh!
Wow,
so funny.
Yeah. They would also leave food out for, and I didn't look up how to pronounce this one. It's Nissc. Nisi? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Nice, maybe. Which is a type of elf. Does that sound familiar?
It's an elf?
Yes. And they would leave out food for the elf to encourage the elves to guard their home. Then they would do it like a ceremonial toast of mead for storytelling and making oaths to each other and their families and things like that. And they would also, and you all have probably heard of this before, or maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Some of the reading I've done, I've heard of it before. Something called Seder. Have you heard of that? Well, it's got funky looking letters in it. So it's like SEI, a funny looking O with a little hook and a twitch on top, and then an R.
Okay. All right. You said that was Sayer?
Sayer?
No, Seder. Seder.
That's familiar, but I'm not sure if it's familiar because of something else.
Right. Now, how did you say it was pronounced again?
Seder. Sayder.
Seder. Okay. Okay. I've heard that, I think, in relation to something Jewish.
Well, I don't know. Because it's a form of divination or sorcery. Because, they would want to thin the veil between realms. So. And the ancient Vikings would also make offerings to their gods, such as weapons, horses, and other valuable goods. And the offerings were during seasonal festivals or sometimes at funerals. Now, some of the ancient Yule practices that are still happening today would be burning a Yule log,
A Yule log. They would burn a
Yes.
Yule log.
Yes. Hanging of wreaths and decorating evergreens and mistletoe.
I remember mistletoe being around when we were kids at Christmas.
Yeah. Dad would go in the woods and look for it and pull it off of the trees.
Yeah. Well, he'd have to climb the tree to get it, but yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I never had mistletoe at Christmas at the house.
It's always pretty.
It was. Yeah. It's got berries on it. You don't eat it. It's poison.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've seen the plastic versions of it.
Yeah, but you would hang it, and it was a symbol of love, peace, and resurrection.
I've got a Christmas ornament. It's a Hallmark ornament, and it's two little winged fairy baby kid things, and they're holding a ribbon, and hanging from the ribbon is a ball of mistletoe, and I hang it in one of my doorways.
Now, and the mistletoe being love, peace, and resurrection can be traced back to the death of Balder, Balder, the son of Odin and Frigg. The death of Balder being he was the son of Odin and Frigg, Frigg. Some people pronounce it Frigga, but there was a woman who was a seer who saw Balder dying. So what his mother did was run around everywhere, all different realms, and convinced everything and everybody to not touch him and not kill him. Okay. But she didn't see the need to make sure that mistletoe wouldn't hurt him. So small and insignificant. And then a strange woman showed up because what the other gods did is they would start shooting arrows and throwing swords and spears at Balder, and it would like just be plumaged off, nothing hurt him. Okay, and then this strange woman came around and talked to Frigg, and said, "What's going on?" So she tells the story, and then the stranger said, "Oh, well, did you get everything?" And she goes, "Oh, well, no, I didn't do mistletoe, didn't see any need." And that woman was not actually a stranger. It was Loki, who was a trickster. Went and got the mistletoe and killed Balder. So that's your basic story of the death of Balder. Yeah, so not so much Thanksgiving that I talked about there, talking more about Christmas, but some of our Christmas celebrations that we have their link to Scandinavia.
Right. Yeah. And it all kind of starts around the time of Thanksgiving.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all this is called the Christmas season.
Yes.
What I found was in the Native American culture, giving is viewed as a central value, often seen as a way to show respect, maintain balance within the community, and express gratitude for the gifts of the earth, with a strong emphasis on reciprocity, meaning that giving is not only an honor, but also a responsibility to receive in return. And sometimes it's done through ceremonial practices like the potlatch, Potlatch, where people give away large quantities of goods to demonstrate their wealth and their generosity. And the practice is deeply rooted in the belief of interconnectedness of all living things. And it was also a way that the Native American community made sure that everybody in their community had what they needed to survive. It's often tied to spiritual beliefs, seen as a way to show gratitude to what they call the creator for the blessings of nature. Like I said, the potlatch, and that is done largely, from what I found, on the Northwest coast.
Northwest coast. Okay.
Yes. Now, gifts can often be homemade or have personal significance, reflecting the giver's care and thoughtfulness. So, ancient Native Americans often celebrated giving through large communal feasts and gift giving ceremonies, which is just where the potlatches started when the ancient Native Americans. They would distribute goods like food, blankets, handcrafted items, things like that is what they would give as gifts.
Thinking of potluck.
Yeah, me too. When I first saw that, I was like, potluck, really? But that's not what it is. And I may not be pronouncing it right, but that's the way it's spelled, is Potlatch. So potluck,
Yeah.
I guess. So that's the basics of how the Native Americans see giving. So now, Native Americans celebrating Thanksgiving. Some Native Americans don't celebrate it at all because the holiday romanticizes the encounter of their ancestors with the English settlers, which was basically the English settlers at the time were trying to commit genocide. So, I
Well, I
mean, they
think
gave the,
when they first came over, they weren't doing that.
well, no, but still, they gave blankets with smallpox on it, and they did stuff like this. So,
Well, yeah, I understand, and I understand why they don't. But when you're talking about like when it first happened, when the first settlers came over, that was not their intent.
no, no, it wasn't. That actually came about later.
Yeah.
But the Native Americans that do celebrate Thanksgiving, they will share a meal. They will gather their family and friends and share a meal, exchanging stories and giving thanks. Some Native Americans that do celebrate will fast from sundown the night before Thanksgiving until Sunday on Thanksgiving Day to remember their ancestors, but still yet celebrate Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um,
That sounds like a good thing everybody should do.
I think so too. Yeah.
You have more appreciation for the food if you're not eating right before.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. You think it tastes good normally, you not eat for 24 hours. See how good it tastes to you then.
Oh yeah.
We're
So
winning.
that's it. That's all I got. So
It's amazing to me. And when you were talking about ancient Native Americans,
mhm,
and then we were talking about the Scottish and the Irish and
mhm.
the Scandinavians, so far apart, very little, if any, communication between any of these civilizations, but yet they all celebrated in the same way.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Family was very important to all of the cultures.
Yeah. And the
Um,
getting together and the sharing of the food and the
yes.
blessings,
Yes.
blessing of the
Mhm.
crops and giving thanks for what they had,
Mhm.
all celebrated in the same way. It's just, I don't know, that's such a commonality among
Mhm.
just humans in general.
Yes.
Mhm.
Now, granted, there are some people out there that are not like that,
True.
but I think most people are. I think.
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the ones that are not are the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am looking forward to next week because not only are we going to talk about the food that we are used to, like our family has done for many, many years, but we're going to maybe throw in some recipes for you.
Mhm. Yeah, I've got some Scandinavian Thanksgiving stuff, and I've got some menus. I will have more details of a Scandinavian Thanksgiving breakfast.
That sounds awesome.
So
Yeah.
my voice feels like it's getting weak too, so it's a good time for me to stop.
Well, you sound a lot better.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm still coughing, and it still doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
So I try not to talk much.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's all right. We'll talk more next week
Okay.
and we'll talk in chat.
Okay.
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 Bye.
Bye. Love you.
Love
Bye.
you. Mwah.